President Trump gave a fist bump when he stepped off Air Force One in West Palm Beach, the signature issue of his election campaign now codified into law.
Everything in here is really tremendous things for businesses, for people, for the middle class.
He called out Democrats again for opposing the bill, but he did project optimism that both sides will work together again in the new year.
Democrats already regret it. You know, they have their typical thing, it's for the rich. They know that's not true. I really do believe we're going to have a lot of bipartisan work done.
Authorities say 26-year-old Everett Aaron Jamison may have been planning a Christmas attack on the popular San Francisco tourist destination Pier 39.
The Attorney General is ordering a review possible Obama administration interference in drug investigations involving the Hezbollah terror group.
SpaceX launched a Falcon 9 rocket from Vandenberg Air Force Base. It's become the talk of the town, with some Angelinos wondering what was it that lit up the sky.
It's Christmas time again. It's Christmas time again. It's Christmas time.
Of all the available Christmas songs, we go with Backstreet Boys. And even they can't mess up Christmas.
Also,
I love it.
important to note that Ed was going like this.
Wow, you're just
Because
coming up-
nobody saw it, so they needed to know.
They needed to know. You had to tell
You're welcome,
America,
Ed. You're
tell the
welcome.
world that.
That's right.
You know, there's nothing like Christmas in New York. It's
I know.
great.
In case we
It's
need to
cool.
remind you, 2 days. 2 days to
It's
Christmas.
Christmas
It is
Eve,
December 23rd, Eve. You're right. America, corporate America calls it Super Saturday. I don't like those names. They're kind of lame. But you probably are going out and doing some shopping today.
Corporate America calls it tax cut weekend.
That's true. That's true.
The
when
big,
it's
beautiful
taking
tax
effect.
cuts, right?
Yes.
For Merry Christmas under
That's
your
right.
tree.
Well,
Do you like
email us.
oatmeal?
What?
Not really.
You don't like oatmeal?
I don't know. Well, you know I don't like oatmeal.
Well, we had this discussion
That didn't go
last
as
week.
planned,
We'll
Ed.
tell you
We're not
about
doing it again. Email us, though, at friends@foxnews.com. Are you still shopping? What are your plans? Have you done all your shopping? Have you done none of your shopping? Have you got your shopping done?
Yes.
You have?
The only thing
Yes.
I need to get is cards, but I have everything else. I have the presents, so.
I don't do cards. And I
Send
use
us your pictures.
Yeah,
We
I
want to know
like
how you're
cards.
celebrating.
Newspaper
Friends at
to wrap.
foxnews.com.
That's right. Well, yesterday, big day in Washington, D.C., as President Trump delivered on his promise to deliver on tax cuts for Christmas. Because there was a lot of the lawmakers were no longer in town, he did his own signing ceremony at the Resolute desk in the Oval Office.
You have to say big, beautiful tax cuts.
Big, beautiful tax cuts. This is what he had to say.
This is something that Republicans wanted for years and Democrats wanted for years, and yet it never got done. Who would object to trillions of dollars being brought back into our country? The bottom line is this is the biggest tax cuts and reform in the history of our country. This is bigger than actually President Reagan's many years ago. I'm very honored by it. Democrats don't like tax cuts. They want to raise your taxes. They don't want to lower your taxes. They want to raise your taxes, and they want to spend money foolishly on things that we don't need in many cases. I really do believe, and I said on social media today, I really do believe we're going to have a lot of bipartisan work done. And maybe we start with infrastructure, because I really believe infrastructure can be bipartisan.
You know, remember, guys, they said he couldn't do it.
Right.
They said, especially after the Obamacare repeal didn't happen, that, well, his first year is going to be a disaster, no major accomplishments. And he sort of sits at that desk yesterday and says, done.
Well, but he's far from done.
Well, with this bill, I mean,
No,
This is a big step forward, but there's a lot of the
big
agenda
movement.
undone.
Well, of course, but it's Congress. There's always a lot to get done in the country. We have a massive country with a lot of problems that need solving. And
Big,
this is a
beautiful
huge,
country.
big, beautiful country. You know, problems. I wouldn't call them beautiful. And look, this is a huge win for the president. This is something they've been trying to get for 30 years. And also not to mention the fact that drilling in Anwar, opening that up, which is something that proponents have been trying to get done for 40 years, repealing the individual mandate, something they've been trying to get done for 8 years. So this is no small feat.
That's right.
And also with a small margin in the Senate of 52 senators. So, I mean, this was a huge accomplishment. This was a huge accomplishment.
It was. So, Ed, before we start talking about what hasn't been done, it is worth marinating on
let's
what
just
happened
marinate
here with
in it
this
for a
tax
minute.
cut. And Rush Limbaugh took
Ed's always
his
on. Ed's always on to the next.
Let me
He's just
marinate. Let's just marinate in the tax cut.
It's more like basking. You're right. I got the verbiage wrong. We're basking in it, in the glow of it right now.
You can marinate. You
That's
marinate.
right.
Yeah,
We're going to
why
marinate
not?
some food. I smelled
You
it
do
on the
you,
plaza.
Pete.
I
You
got
do
prime
you.
rib coming.
Yeah, that's right. But Rush
I thought
Limbaugh
it
on his
smelled
program
steak.
yesterday, you did, laid out this first last year from President Trump and what it really meant. Take a listen.
Donald Trump is fighting a strategic, daily, ongoing war and battle against the American left. I don't care whether he thinks that he's taking out liberalism or whatever. In his mind, he's restoring greatness to America, and whoever's in the way is who's in the way, and they're going to get taken care of. Through it all, Trump triumphs. Through it all, at the end of every day, Donald Trump is still the focus of virtually everybody in the world of politics and most of the people in the country every day. Through it all, Donald Trump doesn't cower in fear. And through it all, Donald Trump is never afraid of the media. The Republicans are watching all this. And at first, it's making them nervous as they can be. But now, and even before the tax cut bill passed, there has been a change. And the Republican Party is happily on Donald Trump's team. And it's genuine. And it is real. What they're realizing is that Donald Trump will win. And they want to be part of a winner.
You know, as much as this is a policy win, this president has been a cultural presidency as well, taking on political correctness, trends in our country,
and
the NFL and the kneeling, the fake news media, calling them out every single day. And he has taught Republicans how to fight. Establishment Republicans in Washington forgot how to fight and forgot how to win. And President Trump, in many ways, has restored their ability.
How'd that work in Alabama and Virginia?
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Wait, we'll see?
No.
There was a bit of a.
He taught them how to fight.
Okay.
I mean, I was with you for part of
But
it.
a couple-
And now you're turning them into like Reagan and I mean.
No. But a couple points here on that though. So Virginia's been a trending blue state,
Sure.
so it was unsurprising for Ralph Northam to have won that race. And then you take Alabama. There were some very, very, very serious allegations against Roy Moore. So unless Democrats expect in every state or state that they want to win, or red state where they have a Democrat candidate or a Democrat incumbent defending it, unless they expect the Republican candidate or the Republican incumbent to have serious allegations like that against that, that's an entirely unique scenario. So you can't compare the Alabama race to any other race coming up in 2018.
You had Democrats motivated to come out to vote against President Trump.
But what have they been motivated by? That's the big question. This is an honest question. They've been leading a resistance. They've been boycotting. They've been talking about impeachment. Some have talked about prison for the president. I mean, is that going to change in 2018? Are they going to be able to turn the corner?
So far, I agree with you that it's unlikely to change because Democrats have had very little of a message. And that's why the tax cut victory could be so significant. Twofold. The economy is really coming back strong. That's very clear. And this tax cut that Democrats have been talking down may make the economy roar in 2018. That's going to make Republicans a lot more formidable, I would argue.
But it's also important to point out.
But also, this tax cut victory makes it like, hey, Democrats, what do you got?
Yeah.
You know, so I agree with you on that point.
But it's also important to point out regarding the impeachment part is that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer have also tried to walk it back and said, hey, guys, slow your roll, because I think they are looking at some of these competitive districts for Democrats. And they know that's probably not going to play well with swing voters they need to win over. Yes, it would play well with the left and during primaries, but it's not necessarily going to play well in a general election. So we've even seen them try to walk back some of that rhetoric. Listen to this, guys.
His motives and his actions are contemptible, and I will fight every day until he is impeached. Impeach 45.
I rise today, Mr. Speaker, to call for the impeachment of the President of the United States of America.
We getting closer and closer to the possibility of yet another impeachment process?
After watching the Clinton impeachment, I thought I'd never see another one. But I think we're in impeachment territory now for the first time.
President Trump did a tweet last night and a tweet this morning. Not presidential.
The president's fitness for office is something that is being called into question. I'm very worried.
This is not an academic exercise. And if you're right, and there is momentum for Democrats, and they do win a number of House seats,
I was just
the Washington Post. No, I mean, I'm not saying you were weighing in either way. But the Washington Post is reporting that there would likely be a lot of energy behind pushing for impeachment in the House of Representatives if they took back the House. I mean,
But it's not just the House. It's also if they win back the Senate. Because if Republicans still have the Senate, I don't see the House, even if under Democratic control, I don't see them moving forward with impeachment and making that an issue because they know it's going to run into a wall in the Senate. So I don't. I think the only scenario where it actually gains ground is if for some reason the Democratic Party takes back the House and the Senate, which is pretty far-fetched if you look at the Senate map.
Well, and if Democrats will look ridiculous if they're just all about impeachment in 2018, number one, combined with the fact that not a single Democrat in the House or Senate voted for tax cuts. Yeah. So if these tax cuts help the economy really take off, not a single Democrat can claim credit.
They've made a big gamble, but we were told that with these tax cuts, Armageddon is coming. Nancy Pelosi told us.
Not just with tax cuts, issue after issue.
Just the latest. We broke out a list of some of the left's freakouts.
I thought we were already supposed to be dead by net neutrality and everything.
Of course. Take a look at these. So we were told by the left that there was the end of press freedom in 2017. Of course, end of the planet because we got out of the climate accord. End of the internet because of net neutrality. I can still log on. I'm shocked. End of immigration rights because we, I don't know, uphold the rule of law. End of your bank account because of tax reform. And, of course, fear of nuclear Armageddon as well on the North Korean peninsula. Yeah. We've told all those things are going to happen. And
we're
Russia,
still here.
Russia.
Thank God.
Russia.
And on Christmas Eve.
We're alive and well, and Christmas is coming. So
and with big, beautiful Christmas tax cuts, so under your tree.
And we were told we couldn't say Merry Christmas
I just
anymore,
love saying that. It's so fun.
What did you say?
I just love saying big, beautiful tax cuts. It's so fun. I don't know why.
Big, beautiful tax cuts. Well,
I'm just going to let Pete marinate for 4 hours. He loves this.
I am marinating all morning long in Christmas
spirit
and tax cuts, as I think all of America is as well.
All right.
Turning now to a couple of headlines I'm going to read for you this morning. An ex-Marine turned Muslim convert is accused of planning a Christmas Day terror attack. Everett Jameson arrested after the FBI caught wind of his plan to use explosives and guns at San Francisco's Pier 39. The 26-year-old hoping to create, quote, another attack like New York or San Bernardino in response to President Trump's recent decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The feds tipped off to Jameson by Facebook posts praising ISIS. Yeah, that'll be a clue. Yeah. And Attorney General Jeff Sessions now ordering a review to whether or not the Obama administration hindered an investigation into the terrorist group Hezbollah. The request follows a bombshell Politico report claiming the administration interfered with the DEA's investigation into Hezbollah's massive drug network, all as an effort to ultimately secure the 2015 Iran deal. The review could lead to new prosecutions of people affiliated with Iranian-backed militant terrorist group. And SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket launch leaves Californians dazed and puzzled.
You guys, that's really weird.
There's another one coming out of it. Is that a UFO?
That would weird me out too. Some even pulling over in their cars just to catch a glimpse of whatever that atmospheric reaction is.
And SpaceX founder Elon Musk joking that it was, quote, nuclear alien UFO from North Korea. Also, I saw a lot of pictures on Instagram of this. And those are your headlines, guys.
Those are their headlines this morning. Yeah, there you go.
Well, especially with all the news of the UFO stuff. So, I mean, I'm sure, I don't know about you guys, but I saw on Instagram a lot of people posting, what in the heck is this?
Of course.
I didn't even know it was coming, so that's why.
I don't even know what's on the rest of the show, but I've heard it's great.
Well, let me tell you, coming up, President ending the year by passing tax reform. Pete is marinating in the tax cuts, but it wasn't the only accomplishment he had. We're going to have Scott Rasmussen breaking it down.
Yep, and he's going to break all these big achievements in 2017. Coming up next, so you guys are not going to want to miss it. So we're going to see you right back.
His first big legislative victory. There have been executive ones, signing tax cuts for Americans into law yesterday. But what else has he accomplished in his first year in office? Joining me now to break it down, editor-at-large for Ballotpedia, senior fellow at the King's College, Scott Rasmussen. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Right, let's walk through, you see here, first-year achievements. There's a lot of debate about what he has done and what he has not done. Let's walk through what you want to do.
His biggest accomplishment is he's got the left distracted so much by what he is doing. They're missing some of these accomplishments. The economy is doing well. His challenge going into 2018 is going to connect his reduction of the regulatory burden and the tax reform bill to the fact that the economy is getting strong.
Because he's laid the groundwork by removing these regulations, a lot of Obama-era ones. The economy seems primed right now. This tax cut, you think, could bring it to the next level?
It could. But again, the challenge politically is the president has to connect the dots. He's going to have to sell this and make sure that people understand the economy is doing well because of this.
He said it'll sell itself. We'll see. All right, where do you want to go next?
Well, let's take a look at what happened in the courts. You know, a lot of people were unhappy with both presidential candidates in 2016. Many of them voted for President Trump because of the Supreme Court. Neil Gorsuch was a big win, getting him on the court.
They had to change the rules to do it.
That's right. And but the Democrats had changed the rules before. This has become a very ugly process to confirm judges. But he's got 12 federal judges. This is going to have a big impact on the Senate races. Can you imagine the president going into West Virginia, where Joe Manchin is going to be trying to keep his seat, and talking about the importance of Republican control to keep on nominating
because there could be more Supreme Court nominees. Who runs the Senate will be a big deal. Let's go domestic.
Well, domestic policy, the biggest Obamacare repeal, or at least a repeal of the mandate. There are 15 million Americans who say they would drop their Obamacare coverage if they were allowed to. There were 6.5 million.
Now they have that chance.
They have the chance. 6.5 million more paid a fine rather than getting it. They'll be happy. And ultimately, this leads to more innovation in the medical field.
Border crossings way down.
Way down. Again, this is a core promise. Right from the very beginning of his campaign, something President Trump emphasized, something he delivered on.
He still wants to get the wall. That will be 2018, maybe 2019. We'll see. Foreign policy, what do you say?
When you go to foreign policy, the signature move was the most recent signature move was the event with Jerusalem, something that people had promised for 20 years.
Many presidents, both parties.
Well, Congress passed a law. It was a virtue signaling vote because they knew no president would let it happen. So Donald Trump did it. On the foreign policy side, I think all of these issues, whether you're talking about the Iran nuke deal or anything else, this is going to be a case where as long as nothing disastrous happens in the year, this will not be much of a factor in 2018.
TPP, Democrats are saying this is going to hurt us in terms of our relationship with China, gives China more influence.
Of course they're saying that. And we don't really know what's going to happen. China's influence in the on the U.S. is much bigger than one transaction. They're the world's largest nation. They have a growing economy, and there's going to be a difficult relationship going forward. This is not going to change.
So going through this whole deal, last question, what's the biggest of all? Is it the tax cut?
I think it's the tax cut and the Obamacare mandate repeal.
All right. Good to see you, Scott.
Thank you,
Merry
Ed.
Christmas. Canada's Prime Minister wants to bring terrorists to his country. So can he actually rehab them? Will that plan work? We're going to debate it, fair and balanced. Plus, it was the performance that had everybody talking on New Year's Eve. Now Mariah Carey, she's getting a second chance. Will we see another foul-up like this? Good morning again. Some quick headlines. One worker hospitalized overnight after a massive fire and explosion at an oil well site near Windsor, Colorado. Neighbors tell our local Fox affiliate the explosion was so loud it shook their house. No word on what caused the explosion. We're still getting details on injuries. And the huge wildfire that burned hundreds of homes in Southern California is now the largest in the state's recorded history. State fire officials say the Thomas Fire has scorched more than 273,000 acres. That's 154 acres larger than the 2003 Cedar Fire in San Diego. The Thomas Fire is now 65% contained. Pete?
Thank you, Ed. Well, Canada's Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, Justin from Canada, says he welcomes reformed terrorists, ISIS fighters, back into his country.
We know that actually someone who has engaged and turned away from that hateful ideology can be an extraordinarily powerful voice for preventing radicalization in future generations.
So ISIS fighters as powerful voices. But is that really the case? Here to debate, Jim Hansen, he's the president of the Security Studies Group, and Joel Rubin, he's a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State. Thank you both for joining us this morning. Jim, I'll start with you. The rationale that the Prime Minister has for welcoming ISIS fighters back to Canada, what do you make of it?
Justin Trudeau must have a pathological case of liberal guilt. I mean, this is cultural suicide. We're talking about adults who made a conscious choice to live a life of slaughtering infidels, raping sex slaves, and burning people alive in cages. Bringing them back and expecting them to become productive citizens is absurd.
So the Prime Minister also went on, Joel, to say that there's a range of experiences when people come home. So is he saying, I'll take a risk that hopefully some of these guys coming back have been reformed and then they can speak out against extremism? But what if one of them isn't reformed and is still dedicated to jihad?
Yeah, Pete. I mean, this is a high-risk proposition, and these fighters should be coming back in shackles. But if there are fighters who are clearly capable of being reintegrated into society, there may be ways to bring them in, but they have to be monitored and it has to be verified. But this is a very high-risk strategy. And there's a bigger picture here as well, which is the question of the politics around fighting ISIS in these countries. We have to, in a sense, drain the opportunity for fighters to want to go to places like Iraq and Syria to join ISIS. I work with a group, the Iraqi National Project. Sheikh Jamal al-Dari, who leads it, continually talks about not allowing an ISIS 2.0 to form. They're already forming in Syria. We have to be very careful of how to prevent that magnet from actually expanding.
Jim, if you talk about draining that ISIS swamp, does it not include A, killing them on the battlefield, and then B, saying we revoke your citizenship, never come back because you clearly don't stand for our values?
You know, remember, these guys aren't coming home because they saw the error of their ways. They're coming home because they lost. You know, there's a concept that we used to have for pirates on the high seas called hostis humani generis, enemies of all mankind. If anyone should qualify as that, it's ISIS. So Trudeau's job is to keep Canadians safe, not to conduct some sort of sociological experiment to see if he can make these guys into productive citizens. But they're not, they can't be, and he shouldn't do it.
It's such a great point, Joel. Do you think Justin from Canada's focus is on keeping Canada safe or on a commitment to sort of left-wing social justice causes?
Well, I have no doubt that it's about keeping Canada safe, and we have to keep perspective. For example, there are 40,000 roughly foreign fighters that have been known to have migrated to Syria and Iraq. Of those from the United States, potentially 200 went there or tried to get there. About 40 actually did, and we track them. This is not a liberal fantasy. What this is trying to be hard-headed and clear and realistic. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep our eyes on these people, that they shouldn't be treated as enemy combatants. They should be, and we have to be very vigilant.
Jim Hansen, Joel Rubin, thank you both for joining us, and Merry Christmas. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Same to you, Pete.
You got it. Well, tax reform is a Christmas gift from the president that we are still marinating as we speak. But the left says it's something out of a horror movie.
It's a monster, a Frankenstein. And anybody who's familiar with Frankenstein knows that it was a creation, a monster that was created. The monster comes back.
Monster is coming back. But should you believe their scare tactics? And Christmas is just 2 days away. Have you finished your shopping, or are you feeling like this instead?
Hey, everybody! These two are looking for a Turbo Man! Shut up, man!
I couldn't stand that. We've got the numbers proving that you are not alone if you have not shopped yet. You've still got a couple days, I guess. Ariana Grande bringing in your Christmas at 6:30 here on the island of Manhattan. We are honored to have you. You're either waking up, marinating, enjoying
That's
this
like
Saturday
the word
morning.
of the day for
We're
you.
still on
It's like
marinating.
under the covers, nice and warm and cozy, or you're like, man, I got a lot of shopping.
Has the president passed another bill in the
Come on
last
in, Rick.
5 minutes?
Come on.
You seem so happy. You're just like
always happy.
Marinating.
He
So much
has.
winning that I'm
He
doing.
has, actually.
It's true. Well, we're 2 days from Christmas. You know that. Rick, thanks for showing up.
I was just putting my microphone on.
Hey,
Well,
Rick.
we brought you up here because we've all finished our Christmas shopping, but we're asking a lot of Americans this morning, have you finished yours? Rick, have you finished yours?
No.
No. See?
No.
At least
There you
you're
go.
very honest.
I don't
about
even,
it.
man.
But I never approach it that way.
How do
Like
you
I
approach it?
just, I shop when it moves me. You know, like when you see
you can
something.
feel inspired by it.
Well, 53% of Americans, according to the National Retail Federation, plan to have the spirit move them today to a local mall or a retailer to do their shopping.
It's called Super Saturday.
53% Super Saturday. 6% will still wait until Christmas Eve tomorrow. And then 5% say, I'm just not going to be done until after Christmas.
Okay, guys, has this been a thing
not a
for
real
forever?
No.
I feel like every lead up to Christmas has some sort of day. We've got Cyber Monday, Black Friday, Super Saturday. I mean, it's whatever. You just make up names to try to make money.
I thought there was a Super Saturday already.
I mean, I appreciate it.
It's the day of the Final Four in March.
Well, and there's that. Yeah, exactly.
Play each other in basketball.
Right, that actually, yeah.
That's my Super
That's a
Saturday.
holiday for you.
Have you ever been on the line at CVS on Christmas Day getting a gift card? Because I've done that.
Oh, I haven't gotten my gift cards, so I'm not gonna lie.
So you know what? You wait until
Or
today.
my cards, like I've got my presents squared away.
But you haven't mailed your
They're
cards?
going to be amazing.
Now
so
they're Happy
watch,
New Year's
Watch out,
cards.
family.
Now they're Happy
Prepare
New
to be
Year's cards,
surprised.
Big, beautiful present.
Big, beautiful presents.
We're going to keep emailing us, friends
Yeah.
at foxnews.com. We'll play them, and we'll find out when the spirit's going to move Rick. For anybody that knows Rick,
I love
probably don't
that.
have a present yet.
So the bad part is that the weather is going to be really bad today across a lot of the eastern part of the country. Because I ran out here not knowing this, I didn't even make any weather maps. Fortunately, this is still up from yesterday. And the weather part of it automatically plots, so the data's real.
Because you were shopping.
There you go.
Because he wasn't feeling inspired
Yeah, but go to your weather map. I didn't put any weather maps up yet. So it is not fake. This is real. But this is my point. You see this coming right across here? Mm-hmm. This is all rain today, and it's snow behind it, the colder air. It's an ice storm that's going on today across New England. Rain behind it, and then snow again behind it, behind that rain. So you get the idea. Anywhere on the eastern third of the country, guys, it's bad. So if you waited to do your shopping until today, like some of us, it's not going to be a good day to get outside.
Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday's weather from Rick right.
No, it's today's weather.
Oh, okay.
It's just a map that this was the last map that I used on the 4 o'clock Neil Cavuto show yesterday.
The time is still changing behind you.
Yeah, we're still good.
See, no, the data is real.
It's whatever time you want it to be.
It might mean some snow, though.
I could have chosen to not give you that information and just gone with it, but I over-disclosed.
Rick, you're a good man.
Mm-hmm, there you
That's
go.
why we love you. Over-disclosing people are
Exactly.
fun people. Good man.
Pete,
All
you
right.
got some headlines from
Moving on to some
yesterday or
headlines.
today?
Pete, tell us what's going on.
These are
new.
Are you
I think they're from just minutes ago. All right, world powers punishing North Korea for its latest test missile by unanimously approving tough new sanctions. The UN Security Council now limiting the country's access to refined oil and forcing all workers abroad to return to the rogue nation. The sanctions also cracking down on shipping to and from the country. It's shocking we still have sanctions we can apply. And a federal appeals court ruling against President Trump's travel ban on Friday, saying it violates the law. But the court defers final ruling to the Supreme Court, and so the restrictions will remain in effect during the appeals process. Under the order, visas are limited for citizens of 8 countries, many of which are predominantly Muslim. And singer Mariah Carey getting a second chance to ring in the new year after last year's epically awesome, catastrophic disaster. Take a watch.
Can I not have one?
Just flip me. It was
Good
one
for
of the
her, though. Get back out there, you know?
Good for her, and it's amazing. The singer confirmed on Twitter that she's performing on this year's Dick Clark's New Year's Rockin' Eve. Carey also says her audio failed during last year's fiasco of her performance, even accusing Dick Clark Productions of intentionally sabotaging her. This is a good move. People will watch.
No,
see if it
you know,
works.
you're
Sometimes
wrong.
things happen. You
No,
know?
I know.
Good for her.
They're right.
They're not watching. They will be watching Fox News because Lisa and I will be part of the team that will be going live from Times Square. So they're not watching the
8
other
to
shows.
10 p.m., guys.
Good point.
Be there.
I love
All right. Meanwhile, tax reform is a Christmas gift from the president, according to Pete. But the left says
According
it's
to the
something
world.
out of a horror movie.
It's a monster, a Frankenstein. And anybody who's familiar with Frankenstein knows that it was a creation, a monster that was created. The monster comes back.
The monster is back. Should you believe these scare tactics?
It's very creative. And plus, this is hilarious. These parents get an A+ for the gift they gave their son's teacher. A bottle of wine with his picture on it saying, "Our child might be the reason you drink, so enjoy this bottle on us." That family's going to join us live, and they are hilarious.
Fiat Chrysler recalling nearly 2 million Dodge Ram pickups because they could shift out of park on their own. That would be a problem. The automaker says a small number of crashes were potentially caused by the defect. This includes vehicles made from 2009 on with shifters mounted to the steering column like this. And Subway, eat fresh or going stale. The fast food company, now downsizing, forced to close nearly 1,000 locations nationwide due to declining sales. Business Insider predicting that an even sharper decline in 2018 after the sandwich maker saw its revenue drop more than 1.5% this year. Drop 1.5%, lose 1,000 stores. Wow. Ed, over to you.
Thanks, Pete. President Trump finishing up his first year in office with a victory on tax reform.
But there has been no shortage of scare tactics about it from Democrats and the mainstream media. So should you believe all of it?
Joining us now to weigh in is the president of Nicholas Wealth Management, David Nicholas. David, it's good to have you today to actually separate fact from fiction.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
All right, so we're going to play a series of clips. I want you to hear this first one from Rachel Maddow.
So when your family's taxes go up because of this bill, you can take comfort in knowing that that's what you're paying for. You're giving telecom companies and the biggest banks in the country a really embarrassing amount of money to have to explain away.
So what say you, David?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, Rachel. It's just not true. Most American families' taxes are not going up next year. Here are the facts. 80% of Americans are actually going to get a tax cut next year. Middle-class family of four are going to get a tax cut on average of about $2,000. For Americans that are living paycheck to paycheck, that makes a real difference. So unless you're a doctor or attorney who's single without kids living in D.C., unless you're in that 4% of Americans, if that's not you, your taxes are going down next year.
And David, on top of saying that it's Armageddon, Nancy Pelosi says that the bill is like Frankenstein. Listen.
They're taking great credit for this accomplishment. Well, I call it a Pyrrhic victory because it's a Frankenstein. And anybody who's familiar with Frankenstein knows that it was a creation, a monster that was created. Do you know the ending of the Mary Shelley's story? The monster comes back to destroy.
Is this a monster?
I just have to laugh at that. You know, Nancy Pelosi thinks this is going to haunt Republicans going into the midterms next year. It's just not true. Naturally, the incumbent party is going to lose some seats. Even Reagan lost 26 seats in 1982. But the reality is it comes down to the economy. If the economy is doing well, that's what Americans are going to be thinking about going into the elections next year. And look,
how soon will Americans feel those effects?
I think you'll feel them pretty quickly. Look, companies like AT&T, Comcast, Boeing, they've already front-run the bill and said, look, we're going to go ahead and pay our employees a $1,000 bonus because of these tax cuts. So I think you're seeing companies step up immediately. But from a tax reform standpoint, I think you're going to feel it in the first quarter of next year.
Yeah, the administration is saying the IRS may have it in your withholding by about February, so people might feel it early 2018. Let's get one more clip in here from Chuck Schumer.
Tax breaks don't lead to job creation. They lead to big CEO salaries and money for the very, very wealthy. Senator McConnell touted the repeal of the individual mandate. That's true. And now our Republican friends will own premium increases on millions of middle-class families. Republicans will rue the day they pass this bill, and you can bet Democrats will make sure of that.
David, part of that was the beginning part where Chuck Schumer repeatedly has said in recent weeks that this kind of tax cut does not trickle down to employees. It sounds like in the first 48 hours, 72 hours, that's not true.
Yeah, this is just a giveaway to the rich.
Well, you know, it's not true. A Democrat president, JFK, would disagree with Chuck, right? JFK believed if you lower taxes on job creators, guess what? We create more jobs. JFK, we saw one of the most robust economic expansions, 3 million jobs created. So no, it works. Reagan cut taxes, almost 16 million jobs were created. So we just need to look at history. We know what works.
David,
lowering taxes on the job creators works.
We've got 30 seconds. I do want to ask you, though, to be fair about it, what about the debt issue here, which is how you're going to pay for this? Republicans talk a good game about reducing debt. You run a wealth management company. I expect if I sat down with you, you'd tell me to get my credit cards in order and deal with my debt.
No question. We've doubled our national debt in the last decade. We've got to reduce our debt. But how do we get there? We get there by improving economic growth. Increasing economic growth will increase revenue. So I'm not as concerned about the debt now that we have a stimulus to the U.S. economy that'll in turn help increase revenues, which will help us start chipping away at that national debt.
Well, and a lot of people are saying, too, that the growth from the economy will help pay for the tax cut. So I guess we'll have to wait and see on that, right?
No, I think it's going to happen. We saw it under past administrations. JFK revenues went up. Reagan revenues went up. We've seen this work before. I think Donald Trump is the modern-day JFK when it comes to tax reform. So I think we're going to see an expansion of the U.S. economy, one that we haven't seen in quite a while.
We haven't heard that before, the modern-day JFK. David Nicholas, you said it first. Good to see you. Merry Christmas.
All right.
All right.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
First, she wrote the book on what happened in 2016. Now Hillary Clinton is taking on her next literary challenge. Editing, yes, Teen Vogue. You're going to want to hear about that.
Interesting. Plus, winter is here, but I'm sure you can feel it. Do you have everything you need to keep warm? Well, Kurt the Cyber Guy has the best winter tech, as he sees there, like this mug that keeps your coffee hot for hours.